Hi, I'm Mercy Me Mentor, and I am a deconstructor, reconstructor for transformation. When we talk about this word deconstruction, I know that in a lot of Christian circles, that it's sort of a bad word or a bad term because people think that it's about losing your faith. And that is not what deconstruction is. The work that I do and the people that I know, they're actually coming closer to God, and their spirituality is actually solidified and it's stronger than ever before because they're not deconstructing out of a relationship with God, but they're deconstructing out of religion, the religious mindset, the religious ideologies and belief system that no longer are true. So they're coming out of this religious mindset. They're not coming out of a relationship with God that is stronger and that is more real than ever before. Secondly, in deconstruction, a lot of people are coming out of churchianity, the structure of it, the traditions of it, and they are not deconstructing out of the Bible or leaving the Bible. If anything, they are actually getting hold of the Bible and realizing what it actually is and what it means to them and why was it written, and getting into the fabric of the audience relevance and getting a better gauge and a better understanding of the Bible. So I think these two things and these two distinctions are very, very important to know in the work that I do and with the people that I know and how we are walking this out. So no, we are not leaving God and we're not leaving the Bible, but we are leaving false belief systems that are no longer true. And how do we do that? And why are we doing that? Well, there's like a whole spectrum of people that are, deconstructing, and people are going from, step 1 to step 5. And there's a whole gradation of it. And so I wanted to talk today about these steps. And I just want to give you a basic 5 steps, right? And step 1 is where you are awakening. You're coming into this awakening of an awareness that the things that maybe you believed in the past are no longer true. So, and that these religious constructs is just that, it's a construct, and that it was formulated by very powerful organizations and very powerful people, not to set you free, but actually to control the masses. And so when you get that awakening and awareness in your walk with God and in your experience, that's step number 1. And for some people, that will never happen, okay? And they're just going to do their life how they've always done it, and they're fine with it. But for many of us, we are coming to an awakening. And this awakening, when you awake, you are going to be asking very different questions than you've ever asked before. And so this is the deconstruction path, and you're not just getting rid of everything. Once you get rid of the faults, you're wanting to put in the truth. That's the reconstruction piece. So step number 2 is, now that you're awakened, you are now questioning. You're questioning because you're realizing that you're coming out of a fear-based foundation where you looked at God, or you looked at the Bible, or you looked at these doctrines, you looked at these different belief systems, and you're realizing, oh my gosh, all of this was based on fear. How can that be? And you're moving out of fear-based into love-based. And once you do that, something happens inside of you and it frees you up to this second stage, or this step 2, where you're now questioning things and you're not afraid to question. Like, for example, let's take, hell. Is hell really real? Does God really eternally torment somebody because they don't know him, or they refuse him, or because, we think they're a bad person or they're evil? Like, how does that really work? And historically, how did people come to this conclusion? And when we look at Christianity, in the very early centuries, you had 6 theological schools. And when you look at those theological schools, 4 of them was all universalism. They believed that everybody was going to get what we would say saved. 4 of those schools. And only one, which was in Rome, actually believed in eternal conscious torment. And there's reasons for that. And then another one believed that, it was just annihilation. I mean, just knowing that historical piece should really spark an interest in you to ask these kinds of questions. And so once you've awakened, you will start to ask these questions, and it's okay for you to ask any question. This is where now you're at this stage number 2. Once you're asking these questions, you're going to have a drive into step number 3 of now investigating. And this is what I help people do a lot in, say, like theology or in the Bible or this doctrine here. And we work through like, okay, how did we come to, in Christendom, believe in this concept of every human being being, that they were created in a sinful nature, that we all have a sinful nature. How did that come to pass, right? And so we're investigating and we're going through the history of the church. We're going through these theological schools. We're going through what does the Bible actually say here in the original language? Not in English, not in French, not in German, not in Korean. No, but what is it saying actually in the original language? And what was the mindset and the worldview for that audience at that time for them to be talking about this? Are we sure we're in the right context, right? So step number 3 is this investigation time frame, and that could take a very long time. And for some people, they only need to do it for 1 or 2 things, but other people, they're doing it for a lot of things. It's like a whole, box of worms that's just opened up, and they're having to go through it themselves, and they're needing help with that. And that's definitely what I do in the house church, 153 Net House Church, that I am a spiritual director for. And that's sort of like what we do together as we're coming to a place of it's okay to ask questions. It's okay not to know. So then let's investigate it. Let's come out of indoctrination and into investigation. And, as we get more information, more data, we're okay with things being fluid and being, open-ended. And we're discovering that, oh my gosh, as we get more data and different data and information about the Bible, our views are going to shift and change. And that's okay, because that's what you do in any field. In science and biology and health, and economics, as we get more and more and better information, yes, our perspectives do need to change, and we're totally okay with that. So as you're in that stage 3, you can then slowly move into stage 4, which is creating. Now you're going to create the new normal. Now, what do I do with this new information? How do I connect all the dots? There's a lot of cognitive dissonance, right, as you're processing through all of this stuff. And you're having to make sense of things. So you're now creating this new normal. And in this process, you might, be having strained relationships in the same household, in your relatives, in your sphere of influence and friendships, right? And you might have to make some decisions on how you used to do life before, say with church, and how you want to do it now. And so you're recreating and creating this new normal in this next stage. And then lastly, I call it step 5, it's embodiment. You come to this place where now you've settled in, you're realizing, okay, this was just a construct. Why did I believe this? Now you found through investigation, you found why, the church had believed this for so long. You're finding out passages in the Bible that really was translated very poorly, and the interpretation was completely amiss. And then, of course, the application wasn't even supposed to be there. And so when you're digging through all of that, now you're coming to a place where, okay, now that I understand all of this, how now should I live my life? And that's embodiment, where you're manifesting, where you are now settled into this new plane of understanding, and you are reflecting, and you're finding that perfect spot where you are now recognizing, okay, now that I know this stuff, now I can be, and now I'm going to live this new reality out by just simply realizing that God and that God and you were not separated, that God is here, and that we're continuing to work out our relationship with him, and that he's going to show you step by step. What does that mean? Just like in any relationship, as you're talking and as you're, asking him questions and allowing him to speak to you and to set you free from things that, that you need to be set free from. So these are the 5 steps of deconstruction, reconstruction. And I want to emphasize again that this whole concept of deconstruction, reconstruction, that it is not, moving away from God. It's actually moving closer and closer to God. And it's not moving away from the Bible. Many times we actually have a renewed understanding and a spark in the Bible because we're recognizing what it actually is. So this is where we want to go. And it's a new way of experiencing God, and the spirituality is foundational, and it is there, and people are getting set free. That is the whole purpose, and that we're recognizing, why did Jesus go to the cross? To set us free, to let us know that there is no religion that will define how we come to know God, but that it is through this relationship. And he set that example for us like an archetype, and we can see that in the life, ministry, and the work of Jesus. So this is the video that I wanted to share with you today because it's so critical. Everyone is going to be going through these steps. And as you go through these steps, it's going to help you be more aware and take responsibility for what you need to do, for what? Coming out of indoctrination into investigation, for transformation, spirit, soul, and body.